cash transfers affect consumption, but this literature is focused on comparisons between treated and non-treated. I'm comparing treated households, beneficiaries, against another group of beneficiaries. There's also evidence that consumers may be present bias, and here there are papers from the US. The first paper from Shapiro is like they observe that the consumption pattern of food stamp recipients in the US is declining over the pay cycle. And also Mastrobon and Weinberg find the same for Social Security recipients. So there's strong evidence. Then in Juntos, there's this paper from Perova and Bakis, the paper from Miguel and Alan here, and also a paper that I wrote with Victor Saldarriaga, in which we find effects on labor supply. So the definition of temptation goods, I'm following Banerjee. They say that temptation goods are goods that generate positive utility for the self that consume it. So basically, if I am, for instance, a smoker and I don't want to smoke, so today in the morning I say, today I won't consume any cigarettes. And then, so when I am tempted, when I am, for instance, in the store and I buy the cigarette and I smoke it, then this is a temptation good for this kind of people. Or for instance, if you are like trying to lose some weight, and you have the dessert in your lunch that you didn't want to consume, but at the end when you are having your lunch, you end up eating it. So these are temptation goods. So about the program, Juntos began in 2005 with 70 districts, and it has been increasing over time. Benefit recipients must meet some conditions that I will talk later, and there was no randomization in the program. So the conditions are very similar to other cash transfers, basically attendance to school, immunization, some nutrition, and visits to health centers. So about the transfer, I use here 2 years of Juntos. The first year is 2009, where the transfer was every month, and it was from 100 soles, and then it changed to transfers every 2 months of 200 soles. Pay dates are known in advance, so there's no income shock because beneficiaries know exactly when are they going to receive the transfer, and the cash transfers are given to women. So the data sources I use is basically the NOW, which is the Peruvian Household Survey, and the payment schedule of Juntos. So interview dates are taken from the NOW, pay dates are taken from the schedule, and in some districts there are more than one pay date, so I use the first date. Basically, but the good thing is that all payments occur on the same week. The reference period is the period which is defined like the 2 previous weeks to the survey. So when interviewers go to the household, they ask whether they have consumed certain goods. No? So in the last 2 weeks, have you consumed chicken? So this question gives you the reference period because I observe the interview date. Then temptation goods, I follow Banerjee also here. I use sweets, which are basically candies and chocolates, alcohol, soft drinks, and restaurants. And in restaurants are, well, roasted chicken, which is pollo a la brasa, Chinese food, which is los chifas, and barbecues. So the strategy is to use within district variation in interview dates, variation in pay dates across districts, and the identifying assumption is that conditional on the controls I use, the distance between interview dates and pay date is exogenous. So I construct 2 groups, a treatment group, which is the group of beneficiaries who have the cash in the reference period, and the beneficiaries that do not have the cash are the control group. But both are receiving the cash transfer from Juntos. So this is the basic regression I ran. First, I examine whether having cash on hand have an impact on consumption. And then in equation 2, I use dummy variables for each set of temptation goods. I include district fixed effects, also month fixed effects, and, well, controls at the individual level. So threads. The interview dates may not necessarily random. It could be like, for instance, they go first to richer families and then to poorer families, or vice versa. Also, recall that I use the first pay date instead of the actual pay date. So this also may introduce some noise. And I rely on expenditures, which it's not the same as consumption. And as well, the way I construct the control and treatment group may include other variables that are not related to the cash transfer. So first, I present some summary statistics. This is something I should be concerned about, because there are some differences in observables, and, well, but in any case, the control group seems to be a little bit better than the treated. So this is the first equation, and the first two columns are from 2009, that the cash transfer is 100 soles and 100 soles, and 2010 is the double. So basically column 2 and 4 are saying that the food expenditures go up by 10 and 20% respectively. Then what I use the set of temptation goods, and most of the significant results come in 2010, when the amount is larger. So basically the probability of consuming sweets goes up by 6 percentage points, and also soft drinks and restaurants. So the last column, because there are restaurants, then here I do have consumption instead of expenditures, because in the other goods I cannot say that this is consumption. For instance, they could be buying all the soft drinks and then stock them, but they are not consuming them. But when we look at column 4, then I can say that consumption is going up. So basically, why does consumption goes up if both groups are receiving this? I mean, the income level is the same, and this is not an income shock, because they know the pay date. So it could be because of borrowing constraints. So then I also look at other set of goods, which are the goods that the beneficiaries claim to be buying, and I don't find any effect on these goods, which also again give me the idea that borrowing constraints are not driving the results. So then, when the last time I present this paper, someone told me that it could be that women are spending the money in these goods because they don't want their husbands to buy other stuff, like beers. So basically what I do here is to split the sample, and when you have like female household head, which is a single woman that shouldn't be affected by this story of trying to avoid a husband to spend the transfer, I still find significant effects on consumption. And then I also do a falsification test to rule out the possibility that I am only capturing supply shocks, or what I'm capturing is just the difference in time. So what I do is run the same regression using data from non-beneficiaries, but who live in districts treated by juntos. And here I don't find any effect, right? So this also, like, these results support the identification. And that's it. To sum up, I find that food expenditures go up when beneficiaries have cash on hand. Temptation goods goes up. And well, as I said before, the falsification test supports the strategy. Some limitations is that, as I said, I don't have actual consumption but expenditures, except for the measure of restaurants. There's also an issue that I observe. I use the first pay date, and I don't have data to distinguish between what the relative importance of borrowing constraints. Again, external validity, which was the topic in the morning, is very limited, and I also have to explore heterogeneity and robustness checks. And well, that's it. Thank you.
Well, I'm from CEDLAS, and I want to first say thanks to the authors because they let me read the paper, and it was very nice and really clear. Well, I think that this is a paper that has a great contribution because talk about an explored topic, especially for Latin America, and it's about the possible negative impacts of the conditional cash transfer, in this case the temptation goods, and the possible existence of inconsistency with the permanent income hypothesis. So I think that this is a relevant outcome for the design of public policies. So my suggestions basically talk about the identification strategy, in which the author tries to capture change in consumption patterns, but also they can capture expenditure distribution like an optimal strategy. So for me it's important the fact that the recipient knows in advance when they have the cash in hand. So there exists the possibility that adjustment, that the people do adjustment in the moment that they make purchases. So I think that it will be more clear that in the paper the authors explain with more detail the payment system. The beneficiaries of Juntos lives in rural areas, so they have to travel to get the pay, and when they are in bigger villages they can access to this kind of goods. So I think that this is a concern about the paper. And like Fernando said, I think that the expenditure in these goods don't involve the consumption of them. So here there are some dates about the people who are recipients of Juntos. 80% of them work in the agricultural sector. The average earnings were about 600 soles, and they have children in the families because was one condition of the program. And they can be potentially the main consumers of these kinds of food in which you find impacts. You don't find impact in primary goods like milk, eggs, beans, and fruits. So I suggest that it's important to analyze how the people access to them. And I think that in the now, there are variables to let you see this. So a possible way to see if there are changes in consumption patterns or not is exploit the panel structure of the NAFO for some household. So you can see, I think that could be a little sample. Yes. But at least in a descriptive way, try to compare with simple difference if there are no changes in consumption patterns. A minor comment about the placebo test that use that you use in the end of the paper is how comparable are the poor people that you use in that table, because they don't receive juntos. One possible concern is that they don't have children under 14, so this different structure inside the home probably explain why you don't find impacts. So I think that you can see in a separate way all the goods that these houses buy. So, well, I hope that these comments help in your research.